I remember when I was in high school, I stumbled upon this one video that was basically arguing that if you do something good for someone else and then you feel good about it afterwards, how is that not a selfish act, right? And really, the argument is if you are gaining some sort of a good feeling from helping someone else, it's not really a selfless act because you feel good about it, right? Like you're gaining some sort of a reward from helping someone else. And so someone could make the argument and say, well, what if you help someone and you choose to do so, but then you don't feel very good afterwards? Like maybe you have to sacrifice some money or you have to sacrifice, some time. Wouldn't that be selfless? And he makes the argument that even if you do that, you're still being selfish because you still prefer to give up your money, right? Like you still have a preference from, for example, donating, $5 to some cause, even though it's a sacrifice financially, from a mental and emotional standpoint, you're actually gaining from giving that $5 away. And you would prefer to do that compared to, spending that $5 on, a sandwich, for example. And I understand where this thinking comes from, right? It's that, if anybody who's watching this has taken an economics class, you'll know that there are, certain bundles of utility that you can choose from to maximize your well-being, right? So for example, if I go to a if I go to a burger shop, like if I go to McDonald's, for example, and I get a burger, well, I also want fries, and then I also want a drink, right? But that's better than if I go in and I get one burger and then I get two drinks, right? Because I only need one drink. So I would rather trade one of those sodas for fries, right? Because otherwise it just doesn't complement itself very well. Um, so it's stuff like that that really, in economics you can kind of run this analysis of like, okay, how much is one medium fries worth? Okay, well, one medium fries is worth a drink, for example. Or like there are ways that you can mathematically do trade-offs and plot it on a graph, um, to make it make sense, right? And so in that case, I understand where that idea is coming from because he's saying, okay, well, if you spend $5, you're actually gaining more happiness from donating it than spending it on yourself. And so you're on a higher utility curve, um, compared to otherwise, right? Like you're gaining more from that $5 if you donate it. Now, I would dispute that though, right? I think that the way to think about it is not about good versus bad or, how much happiness you can derive from an action. It's actually more about what is our purpose on Earth, right? I would argue that human beings, we exist to serve others, right? In the same way that a bird flies and a fish swims because it's in their nature to do so. In that respect, it's our nature to serve others, to help others, to care for others. And that's why you get the most satisfaction out of life when you do those things, right? It's not actually a question of, you know, trying to be selfish and say, "Oh, well, I'm gaining more happiness." You can't gain something that you were already supposed to do, right? The reason that that happiness you feel, it's actually better described as harmony with our true nature. And so it's you can't compare it to regular happiness. Like for example, if I go to Subway and I order a sandwich, yeah, I'll be happy with it, right? Like it's like it nourishes me. It's tasty. I'm having a good time. But that's different from what my purpose is. Like it doesn't matter where I live in the world, and it doesn't matter what kind of food I eat. You know, that sort of short-term happiness from food or from activities or, video games or whatever it is that brings you short-term joy, it's not actually going to fulfill you in the same way that helping someone else will. Or, just as a practical example, if you're running a business and you provide some sort of a service to someone else that really helps them, that really alleviates some of their stress, you feel good for the rest of the day because you notice that you've actually helped someone. It's not even really about the money at that point. And so to say that it's selfish or selfless, I think those terms actually reduce it to something that it's not, which is it's not a choice, it's not a preference in the same way that choosing what to eat is, right? Like again, just to use a food example, I know I've been using those a lot, but it's just to make this very simple. Do I prefer McDonald's or do I prefer KFC, right? That's a preference, right? I'm going to enjoy one more than the other. But when you choose to help someone, it's not a preference. It's very much ingrained in who we are. It's very much ingrained in our beings, right? In our souls. And so it's not a question of like, oh, well, I'm going to donate this $5 because I slightly prefer to help, this homeless person compared to if I were to buy a sandwich, right? Like instead of buying a sandwich for myself, I'll buy a sandwich for the homeless person. It's not a preference that you would enjoy that one more. It's like it's actually aligned with your humanity. And it's very similar to just living a healthy physical life, but in this case, you're living a very healthy emotional and spiritual one. So again, I understand why people think that way. I understand why they think, oh, well, it's a preference to help others over yourself or vice versa. But it's much more in line with, what am I, what am I as a human, and why is it that I do what I do, and why do I serve others? So that's what I would say for today. So yeah.